So it is Thursday night right now. I just got home from the job site, so it's about 9 o'clock, and I'm going to start off this weekend's sculpting extravaganza by floating the head that I have in behind me here with the sculpt on it. What I mean by floating is I need to take that whole thing and I need to put it in water and just let it soak. I thought about putting it in the bathtub, but I think what I'm going to end up doing is I have a large stock pot, and I'm just going to fill that with water and put that in there and let it do its thing. And hopefully I can take it off like after breakfast tomorrow morning, or I might have to leave it on a little bit longer. But the reason that I'm deciding to float it off of that instead of just leave it on there and pick up the negative silicone cast from that is because it's going to be a lot easier if I put it on a snap cast of just this area of the face. And I got that by going back into my 3D scan of the head itself, and I printed off, I put it in Prusa, and I made a cut, and then printed off just this side of the face, which you have right here, and then I took some clay, kind of made up a ledge on it, and used the alginate to make a whole negative, and then I poured it into, I think I just used some of my stone stuff. I made this guy with that, so you have the 3D print, and then I put clay around it, and I tried to make some registration holes. This one kind of failed a little bit, but I do have others that are pretty decent. So I gotta float that off, get it on here, repair whatever needs to be repaired, because not all of that is going to come off 100%, especially like where it's actually blended in nice and smooth. So not the worst of worst deals. But so that's project number one that I got working on. The other one though, so the other project that I have is I'm going to look at possibly redoing the eye. Now I got the eye, I had the silicone piece, it's all set, ready to go, and I actually poured myself a first attempt positive appliance, and I think it came out pretty good. I was playing around with some silver dust, some mica powder to color it all for the skeletal metal that it's supposed to be, and the insert actually worked out pretty well for where I don't want it 100% up against my eye. So I did make a little thing to where it'll sit above that, and that's also where the light will fit in. However, situation came up where this, when it sits on my face, it's a little bit cartoonishly large, as you see here, and I don't want it that large. The biggest reason is because if you see a Terminator, of course the eye is recessed in, the robotic eye is recessed in, and this is bulging out, and it shouldn't be doing that. But with my skeletal structure, I don't have that male brow ridge that where they're on a male skeleton. Typically what you would see is the brow going out and coming back in. You have that ledge essentially before, and it goes back, and then you get the eyeball, and that's how you get that nice recess. So what I ended up doing, because this was sculpted with the LEDs that I had on hand at the time in mind. So this LED right here, this tiny little guy, but it sticks out so much that I had to add all that material. What I ended up being able to find was actually a micro LED. This is a mini LED. So I know this looks like just wire, but there is a little bulb at the very tip of this wire. And so what I'm going to also end up doing while I'm trying to float the main piece off of the stone face is I'm going to resculpt on the eye a new where this will fit in, and it should be much more recessed because I can actually make this thinner than it is now. And so that way when it sits on my eye, and then I also take everything else and put it, this will actually look a lot flatter, a lot smaller against my skeletal structure, and should at least help to give off that look of the actual skeletal structure that it should be. At least it won't look cartoonishly large. So, but this was a nice, just a one-off kind of trial run to see how it was going to go. Definitely there's a couple things that I do need to change going forward. But other than that, let's get to floating that head, and I also got to take a nap, and I'll be back. So it is now morning. I've decided to leave the head soaking probably for the rest of the day, or at least until late afternoon. And in the meantime, I've restarted the eye, and essentially the first thing I did was I resculpted what's going to be the insert, which is the channel that the light and the wiring is going to run through on the back of the eye. You can see it like here on the first attempt that I did, and with the wires heading out the back there and to the side. But like I said, with this type of LED, it's good, but even though it is small, it's just what I had to sculpt in order to get it to fit properly. When I put it on my face, it's just way too high and it looks way too cartoonish. So that is why I moved on to the super micro LED, which is really just, I promise you, you may not be able to see it, but there is a little tiny light very at the little tip of these wires. It's a little red dot. So that is the plan there, hence why I've decided to just resculpt the whole thing. But first things first is I need to get this new insert silicone and then re-poured as a hard urethane of some kind, and I realized I ran out of my urethane mixture, so I'm gonna have to just go down the street while the silicone is curing up, and I'll probably just make it out of some epoxy resin just for now, and for the rest of the day I will be resculpting the new eye. So a little bit of an update. It's about 5:30, 6 o'clock in the evening right now, and the eyepiece that I was working on this morning, I put the silicone on. It has not wanted to cure. I have been having an absolute bastard of a time all day trying to get it to cure. It should have set up within like 30 minutes or an hour, and I poured that at like 9, 10 o'clock this morning. For whatever reason, every once in a while I get this issue where it just, the silicone that I use just does not want to cure. Even though I've mixed it correctly, I've done everything correct, it just doesn't want to set up. It could be the humidity in the house, I'm not 100% sure. However, I don't tend to just give up on it. What I do is I dunked out as much as I could, put a little bit more catalyst into it, mixed it back up, re-poured it, and then something I found that kind of works, I don't know why, I do not understand the science behind it, but I took a wet paper towel and I put it over the top of it, and for whatever reason it seems to help it actually skin up. I wish I could explain why it does it. I have no idea, but it did. Again, it might have to do with the humidity. I introduced more moisture to it. So it is gummy. I'm gonna leave it overnight and hope for the best in the morning. And if it still doesn't work, what I'll end up doing is I'll pick out what I can of the gummy goopy mess, and whatever doesn't come apart, what you do in order to clean from the clay is you coat it all with baby powder, and you just kind of work it off, and it'll start balling up essentially to like this, almost like a wet flour consistency. And so that's how you clean. If you ever have bad silicone that just doesn't set up whatever you do, use baby powder on with whatever wet silicone is still there after you try to get off everything that you could, baby powder, and just go from there. But in the meantime, I just pulled the face out of the pot. The biggest issue is that the pot was not actually big enough to fit the entire head, so the water line came to like here. But I've soaked it for as long as I care to. I'm gonna try to get this thing off and get it onto the 3/4 snap that I casted, and go from there. Hopefully this kind of works. If anything, I can go to the bathtub, fill it, sit in there, maybe I can coax it off that way, but just for ha-has, I'm gonna try to do what I can with what I got. Now, first things first is I just want to take off the flash. I don't need this flashing. I was gonna use it and do like a full thing, but then that's when I decided, you know what, this is a bad idea, because I'm gonna end up using so much product that I really don't need to use. And so that's why I came up with the 3/4, and I'll just see if I can transfer what I've done to that snap cast and essentially float this off. I will say what has been in the water seems to be coming off quite easy. And I've noticed the top of the head, I know you can't necessarily see it in the camera, but right here where it was dry all night and it didn't really soak, it is coming off, but at the same time it is wanting to, as you see the little holes right there, stick just a little bit. But now I should be getting back down to where it was in the water, and it's coming off quite well. I'm not really having to mess with it too much. And of course this stuff, I don't really care whether it breaks or not, because I'm not looking to preserve this. Ooh, that came off. Look at that chin. Look at that chin. Just whoop, right off. So the float for at least the flash alone was successful. The biggest question was whether or not I'm going to be able to get the rest of this off. So since this area was underneath the water, I'm going to work from the bottom up, and then if I can get the rest of this off, because it's essentially from right here up, didn't get touched by the water. Like I said, I don't have a big enough pot, but feels like it wants to separate right here. Here's a pretty decent ridge that I have, because of course that's where the eye is going, so I didn't smooth it out like I did up here. So I'm getting this area right here to let go, which is kind of nice. I'm just trying to ever so slowly try to work with it and try to coax it and not go forcing it off. Just kind of nice and easy. If I can maybe get the bottom started, that would be really cool. This is more smoothed into, so it would be a little difficult, but if I can get around this eye area right in here, and again, I can, as long as I don't do too much damage to it, I can fix it and kind of rework it once it's on the 3/4. I may have to actually put this in the bathtub now that I've gotten it at least started a bit on these two areas, and let the water kind of seep in behind it. I guess it was really sealed pretty good, because it's definitely fighting me, especially where the details are. Like right here, it's actually wanting to split and lift along this line instead of following up and through. So just to kind of cover all of my bases, I'm going to stop here, go either put it back in the pot or the bathtub or something, and let it soak for a few more hours, and just continue working it off throughout the night. 5 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, and it has skinned up. That mark right there is actually where I put the wet paper towel, and it made contact with the top of the silicone. Now there are a couple parts where I can put my finger on it and it's still gummy, so I don't know how the actual underside of all of this looks. Now the issue with that is I have epoxy resin that I wanted to use to make the actual piece that's going to sit there that I sculpt over, and I really don't know how epoxy resin deals with alginate, which is a very wet substance. It's a one-time use kind of to get a negative. That's why I wanted to use the silicone, but for whatever reason, like I said, the silicone just really didn't want to kick off the way I needed it to, and especially like, where is it? Right here in the well from where the nose is supposed to be. If this was actually part of like the whole face, I can put my finger on it and it is still very wet. That's kind of an issue, and it makes me curious about the underneath of everything. I'm hoping for the best when I get all of it taken apart. If not, like I said, I'll just clean it up with some baby powder. But first things first, I'm gonna get some breakfast and go from there and see what happens. I also did not finish getting the piece off of the face. I put that back in the pot to sit overnight again to get some more water up underneath there, now that I kind of was able to open up the bottom and the top around the eye. And again, hoping for the best there. And we'll just see where the day takes me. So I wanted to get this part on camera as a just in case it genuinely underneath everything did not cure. I have my baby powder all set, ready to go. Like I said, on top where I put the wet paper towel, I can touch it, I can play with it. It's not leaving any residue, and it's not sticky at all. It's pretty, actually quite hard. But underneath, I have a feeling that it's still going to be sticky and maybe even possibly completely uncured. It is a risk. So I'm going to take it apart piece by piece, kind of see as I deconstruct it what it's looking like. So I just took this part of the flashing wall, and right here, as you can see, it's leaving residue, so none of that cured. So I do have that risk of the rest of it underneath did not cure either. But that's why I'm just going to peel this piece by piece. And more than likely, because this didn't cure this bit of clay that I have, I'm just going to get rid of it because it's contaminated. And if I ever wanted to use it again to try to clean it up, it's just not worth it. Not as sticky and residual as I thought it would be. As you can see here, it left a little bit. Peel that out. So not the worst. So the sidewall so far, it's not sticky. It's actually quite solidified. So I'm going to continue going. I have a glimmer of hope that whatever I pull off is actually going to be somewhat useful. And even if, well, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and lift it up. Hoping for the best. Just got to break that airlock seal on it. Ooh, okay, so something that I just noticed happen is when I was pulling apart the last bit of clay, so right there in the pocket, there's this pool right here of product that just did not cure. However, the closer you get to the wall, it actually did cure. So I might actually have a product that I can use, although it did go awry. Just kind of breaking that seal off of the stone. Let's see. Oh my goodness, I think this actually works. So now all I gotta do is get the plastine out of there. I am going to coat this whole thing with the baby powder. I'll get that over there just to get it to... It's a little gummy on the sides here, but I'm not going to let that get me down. But it actually seems to have cured in some capacity. So that is really awesome. So we're just gonna kind of make a pile and get my fingers in there too to get that barrier. And I'm gonna go ahead and just powder everything, powder every inch of this thing. And that will take care of the stickiness. And this is actually something that you would also do when you pull an appliance. Like when I pulled this off, I did use powder to kind of take down whatever stickiness sheen was on top. This is some old Platzel 10 gel that I had just laying around, so it's not the best. I do think it's actually kind of hitting toward the end of its work life because it's been on my shelf for so long, but that was just a kind of see if it's gonna work even remotely, and if it didn't, it wasn't gonna, you know, make me cry. Because let's see if I can pull apart the piece of clay that was in here, and I may actually be able to utilize this still if I can get it without it breaking. The end here, I don't care much about. I actually sculpted it far beyond where it needs to be. So if I kind of mess up this section here, it won't be the end of the world. It will be, it's gonna be alright. There we go. Kind of get that out of there. Clear the channel. I'll use this and see if I can, it's just a, it's a metal ball. I would actually prefer to use the plastic one, but I don't know where the heck I put it right now. But I'm just going to go ahead with the ball and just kind of coax this. I'm not even pushing very hard, just ever so slightly coaxing it out of the channel. And there we go. It actually, I can use this. So I'm going to go ahead and finish powdering it. and I will pour the epoxy resin. And let's see. Yep. So all I needed to do is just sit just like that. And I can get a nice epoxy, and of course I'll end up using the this. I'll clean this. So what you do, so all that gummy stuff, just get your powder, turn it all up. And before, as you saw, it was sticky, but now with the powder, as you mix it in, like I said before, it kind of starts getting that, like, almost like a texture of flour dough, and it turns more into just a snot rather than a liquid goopy mess. But sometimes you just need a little bit more. Don't be afraid to use the powder in, don't be conservative with the powder. Be very liberal with it. Sometimes you just need it, and that'll end up getting everything cleaned off. Then I'm going to take this whole entire thing, and I'll put it underneath the sink with some soapy water and really get in there with a brush, like an old toothbrush, and clean everything out. But yeah, see, as I'm kind of working it, and see if I can get there. So that's this rolled up area that is wet silicone mixed with the baby powder, and it turns into like a doughy ball. So that's what you're going for when you're trying to clean this off, and it does help. And then the rest of it will be like Dawn dish soap, and we'll go from there. All right, so while I'm waiting for the stone snap cast of the eye to dry, I just finished scrubbing it, getting it as clean as I really care to. I don't have any naphtha or lighter fluid, and I would use that actually to go through and really scrub clean it. But since I don't have any of that, I just used some Dawn dish soap and some water and went from there. But meanwhile, I've had this soaking again overnight. I really didn't work on it much last night after that first attempt. I tried, and it just didn't really want to do much, so I figured just leave it overnight, and we're going to see if that has helped any after I got the bottom of the cheek here and the top of the brow here to see if I can get anything else off. And of course I'll work through it for the rest of the day. Hopefully this does not split, or it doesn't at least split too much while I'm trying to remove it from the face, and we can get it on its own snapcast. So here we go. I'm going to turn it just so I can see real quick. I want to do most of this for the camera if I can, but in order to do the best to actually preserve, I might just have to have it turned towards me, make some progress, and then send it back to the camera so you guys can all see. I'm trying to ever so slightly with this tool just get underneath the right here at the very bottom to see if I can maybe kind of cut essentially and break that seal of where it's at. So let's see if I can be successful in that. We'll go from there. All right, so I've started to focus more on the bottom since that was actually under the water, and as you can see here, the detail between here and here, it did split a little, but as long as I can get it to essentially hold together, I can fix that once I get it on the new home. It's just right now trying to get it all to let go without doing too much damage to it. So I'm essentially trying to lift it away as a whole piece. And you can see here, this section where the eye is coming apart a lot easier because it is thicker rather than the bottom, which is much thinner. And so that area is fighting me a little bit as I can feel it, but I am trying to be nice and just essentially coax it off. There we go. There we go. There we go. You see that? And so now I'll start trying to work it up. And this is essentially how it came off here, right at the bottom, right at that the transition between the clay and where I want it to be smoother. That's essentially what I'm hoping the whole rest of it will do. I know probably up here it's going to fight me, but since this area is fighting me so much to come off, that's why I decided to work from a different angle, and maybe I can kind of just come this way from the bottom entirely, and majority of it will just let go and be successful in floating off of the face. And I have a feeling right here it's starting to separate because of that line, and it kind of is. I'm gonna it's actually wanting to come apart where I want it to. You can kind of see it right there. It does want to come off, so now I just got to be super uber careful. All right, so as of right now, I've got most of it off from, let's see if you can see here. Oop, don't want to fluff it out too much. From right around in here, of course, I haven't touched this very much at all, and the entire eye up to about in here is off. So what I want to do is I'm going to see if I can maybe lay it down in the bathtub or something, or in a different type of bucket that I might have, to see if I can just get some of this area covered with water, let it soak for a couple hours before I do any more damage to it, because this area here where it was kind of nice and smoothly transitioning into the scalp, I'm happy to shave off more than what I would prefer. So I'm going to stop for now and re-soak it and come back to it, and we'll finish getting this off. I need to apologize because apparently I forgot to push record when I finished getting all of this off. I've probably been working on this for about 10 minutes and just got it off, just got it on the snap, and looked up and noticed camera wasn't going. So my bad, I'm sorry, but as a recap of what just happened, I mostly used a popsicle stick to get up underneath the eye and push ever so slowly, ever so slightly, along with using this guy to get up in there and just kind of use that edge to take it off. And really the only thing that got left on there is that little guy right up there. I do want to note just real quick, this is some cast stuff that you can get at like your Hobby Lobby, your Michaels. I won't say Joann anymore because Joann's is closing, but something I did notice while this has been in water for so long, it's been over 24 hours collectively throughout each time that I've soaked it, is round in the chin area, it's actually starting to pit. And I don't know what exactly is going on with this medium. This is not something I've used this medium for before, but I'm going to have to keep an eye on that. I don't know if maybe it's just what happened when I originally poured it and I'm just now noticing it. I don't think it had all these bubbles when I demolded it from the full cast. But anyway, moving on. So that's done. So now here we are on the snap. Oop. On the Snapcast. As you can see here, where I was shaving it off with this guy, I'm gonna have to repair all of this. It's a little like shredded chicken. Definitely don't want that. Also in this area right here, I put the old eyepiece on just to make sure I get the correct curve as I'm pushing it down onto its new home. And then from there, I will get some fresh silicone. I have a new fresh kit of Smooth On Mold Max 30, I think it is. And that's what I'm going to use to make the negative. But yeah, that's going to be it, I think, for me this weekend. Of course, just throughout the rest of the time that I have before I got to go back to work, I'll work on the repairs and all. And come back next week and hopefully I'll have an actual negative and maybe even an appliance. We'll see. Meanwhile, I am still waiting on the epoxy to cure up for the eyeball. plans got changed a little bit because I didn't realize it's a 30 to 40 minute work time, but a 12 to 24 hour setup time. So oopsie poopsie, I can't read apparently. It is what it is. I'll just work within the confines of what I got. But until then, thank you so much for watching. Catch you in the next one.